Hey there, guys. Some of you asked to see a rank 1 clear on Giorgione that doesn't use Sylvie. So we're going to be going back for another rank 1 that doesn't use Sylvie. So all modifiers perfect score. Now, let me just tell you, not using Sylvie on this fight is like activating double extreme hard mode. It is way harder to not use Sylvie as opposed to not using Tsukiko. Sylvie brings so many important things for this fight, and, without her in the party, it was very challenging to figure out a rank 1. I did figure it out, and this does work. It's pretty reliable. Not really any RNG involved. It's very repeatable. But let me just warn you, the gear used is pretty intensive. You need some really good gear, some specific units, etc. Basically, you need extreme levels of bulk to survive without Sylvie, because no one else really does good magic mitigation except for her. And that's a real shame. Okay, so every turn, we need to use fire, earth, or light damage to seal the boss. Now, on turn 1, we're not going to be using any imbues, and I couldn't fit elemental weapons. So we're going to just use Wilk to Scarlet Wave on the boss. That's going to deal fire damage. If you don't have Scarlet Wave, just give him some kind of way to deal one of those elements, but don't use imbues. Runda is going to LB on turn 1 for the 80 general and 80 physical mitt. He's also auto-covering. Kresnik is passive provoking, but Runda's going to cover. That allows Runda to get his cover mitigation on top of regular mitigation. So Kresnik does Arcane Stimulant for the morale gain. Tsukiko is going to Blessed Omamori for the morale fill and the Rod in Peril. We're going to, don't imbue yet, we're going to Purging Mandala Earth, and we're going to Prayer of Protection. So do all of that, but don't use her imbue yet. Now, Kaito in the base form is going to do Swelling Current and Receding Tide. That's for the racial mitigations to Demon and Fairy, also a Barrier and a Mirage for Runda, and then just Tranquil Flow for Morale Fill. And Chizuru can do Strong, Breezy, and Staunch again for Morale Fill. So turn 1 is just physical damage, but we've got 55 Fairy, 55 Demon, 80 General, 80 Physical mitigations. We've got 350 stat buffs. Runda has got cover mitigation. So basically Runda's taking very, very low damage. He's also got wind resist, and he's wearing resist gear. So Runda very safe on this first turn. And he's also got Snow Bear to keep himself alive, because we're not going to have time to heal him. But he didn't really take much damage anyway. Okay, so turn 2. This turn, Runda is just going to cover, protect, and shell. Now, shell is kind of like our only magic mitigation for most turns. It's only 50%, and that means we're going to be taking a ton of magical damage on some of these turns. Kresnik is going to Arcane Remedy. We need that for the Charm immunity. That's going to recast Charm immunity for the rest of the fight. Now Tsukiko is going to Imbue. So we're going to Consecration Earth, and then just double Purification for the morale gain. We're going to be bursting on turn 6, by the way. Now, bursting on turn 6 is for a few reasons. For one thing, it makes morale feel easier, less stressful. So for those of you that are having problems feeling morale, this is very easy to do morale on this clear. But also on turn 6, allows us to avoid the double strong damage over time later in the fight. But early in the fight, we still got to deal with it. So we're going to go to the shift form with Kaito. We're going to do Torrential Force to get his Blade Storm modifiers increased. We're going to do Destabilizing Form for accuracy down, and then Crashing Waves for a bigger break. Okay, Chizuru, Chizuru is using a very high Spirit build. So 6,100 Spirit on Chizuru with buffs. We need healing over time for the damage over time. Now, normally, again, Sylvie does healing over time. Without Sylvie, no one else on this party has healing over time. And that is very important to help reduce the damage over time. So, we're going to use Chizuru on the Lakshmi Esper to do Kiss of Rebirth. This is a healing over time for the party. It scales on Spirit, and with 6,000 Spirit, it'll heal between 8 to 10,000 per turn on the entire party after the damage over time deals you damage. And then Wilk can just triple steady to hit the boss with earth damage. We are now imbued. Okay, so this turn, just more single target physicals, and then he applies the damage over time. Also, he AoE charms, but we now have Remedy from Kresnik. So the damage over time is extremely painful. Now, some strategies use guts to deal with it. We're not doing that. We can't rely on that with this strategy. We have to just bulk up and survive it, and we're going to. Okay, so I'll show you in just a moment when all this finishes. So this turn, we're going to take damage over time as well as water and wind damage. So first of all, Kresnik is going to Arcane Antioxidant, so that the rest of the fight we have resistance buffs. We're going to use Runda to just SLB for the mitigation. Now for the wind damage, Chizuru is going to Eastern and double Breezy. That's a 150 wind resist buff. And on turn 3, the boss does not remove your resistance buffs. We're going to just triple Purification with Tsukiko. That's for the morale fill, really nothing else. Kaito is going to go to the base form. No, in the base form, is his damage form, and he is geared for damage this clear. We are currently, like I said, in his damage form, low spirit. So in order to survive, he's going to mana a few words. That's a 90% self-only mitigation, so that he takes less damage from the damage over time. Then we're going to do Pure Liquid for the water absorb, because we're not using water resist. And then Tranquil Flow just to hit the boss. Okay, now, the whole party is very, very bulky. Like I mentioned, this is expensive. So, you know, Wilk, 4,400 Spirit, 5,400 on Kresnik, 6,000 on Chizuru, 4,500 on Runda, 4,500 on... No, this is buff Spirit, of course. On Tsukiko, and then only 2,300 on Kaito because he's in the DPS form currently. The rest of the party is all hiding in a safe form, but Kaito has his 90% mitigation. Okay, so Wilk can again just hit the boss 3 times. Don't use his Imbue yet. Now we're going to take damage over time. So everyone should mitigate it to the point where they don't die, and then Kaito, so Kaito took 35,000 damage even with 90% mitigation. This boss is crazily high damage. It's really unfortunate. And then after we took that damage, you see that even though Kaito took 3,500 damage, or 35,000 damage, he's back at 30,000 health. That's because of the healing over time. That's going to be really important for this coming turn. Yeah, the Kiss of Rebirth allows us to heal back after the damage over time happens. Okay, so wait for the autocasting to finish. So this turn, Runda will just do Cover, Protect, and Shell. Now we're going to use Tsukiko's base form LB to apply 100% Amplify for herself on the burst turn. Because we're not using Sylvie, and we need that strong Amplify. So by using it on turn 4, on turn 6, she'll have a 100% self-Amplify. Now, Kaito is going to go back to the DPS form, but we're going to save him for a moment. We're going to do him in a minute. Okay. Chizuru could just reload and do Breezy and Eastern again. Don't really need anything else from her this turn. Kresnik is now back in the base form. So we're going to do Potion, Antioxidant, and Remedy. Now, this turn, Wilk is finally going to use his Earth Imbue, because his Imbue is a self-only 60% Amplify, because obviously we're not using a good AoE Amplify. And then double steady. So that'll imbue him for 5 turns, so he'll be imbued for basically the rest of the fight with a good amplify. And then Kaito in the shift form can do downpour for the killers, and then deep and destabilizing to reapply the accuracy down. Don't use the morale skills on this turn. Okay, there's the damage over time. We took damage and then we healed back up with healing over time. And there is some AoE non-elemental. So because we've still got racial mitigations from Kaito, all the huge buffs, the healing over time, etc., we didn't lose anyone. But it is very risky, especially Kresnik, because he's using a quad attack build in the base form, and it's pretty squishy. But, you know, we survived it. You know, I'm not going to say fine, but it was survivable. See, as you can see, Kresnik only has 4,400 spirit and 36,000 HP, which is kind of low. I know it sounds crazy to say low, but for this fight, that is kind of low. You need excessiveness on this fight. Okay, so we're going to be bursting next turn. Thankfully, on turn 5, we no longer have the damage over time, and all the boss is going to do is a single target attack. There's no damage from the party this turn. So this is a very safe turn to use Magic Boost on Tsukiko. Now, we're only going to have 1 stack of Magic Boost, but we should still very easily overcap this boss. We're also going to use the defense and spirit buff this turn. The reason for that is I want as much spirit as possible on our Chizuru. Let's use Kresnik real quick to cure breaks just in case. Now Chizuru is going to do, with a 400% buff, she's at 6,200 spirit. We're going to reapply Kiss of Rebirth for healing over time, which we're going to need later in the fight. Kaito is going to, on this turn, use him last. Let's have Wilk this turn go to the shift form, and we're going to do Hurricane Fist. That is going to put up a bigger demon killer for himself and do a big fist in peril on the boss. Also, it's going to unlock his Magnus. And then Runda can do his base form, his normal LB. That's to refill LB gauge on Tsukiko so she can burst next turn. Notice that refilled Tsukiko back up. And then Kaito is going to triple. We're going to end this order. Natural, Deadly, and then we're going to use Undulating Waves as the last action. That'll extend these debuffs for later because we're not going to have time to reapply them later. Okay, now if your Tsukiko does not have a maximized LB on this turn because you got bad RNG on drops or something, you might have to reset the fight because we need to do things in this order on the next turn. Most of the time with the gear we're using, Tsukiko should very easily have her LB ready to go on this turn. We've filled up 40 by default, and then she has 12. She has 8 LB a turn this round, or in this gear. So she only needed 4 drops, which over the course of 3 turns, which we should have gotten. But again, if you didn't, you can either give her more LB a turn to guarantee it, or just hope for better RNG. Okay, this is the burst turn. First, we're going to do attacking magic buff. Then Kresnik is going to do AoE re-raise with a mastery. We're going to need that for later in the fight, not this turn. We're going to potion to heal the party, and then remedy to cure those breaks. Okay, next we're going to do Chizuru's base form LB. Now you might be wondering why am I not bursting with Chizuru on this turn? Well, we need her to stay in the base form for later in the fight. She's mostly a support unit this clear because again, we're not using Sylvie and we need powerful magic mitigation. And we're going to use Chizuru's Magnus mitigations later in the fight, and she's a trance shift. If we shifted this turn, she would be stuck in the shift form, and we'd be out of luck. So we're going to stay in the base form, and we're going to use her base form LB. That's a modifier boost for physical damage, and Kaito takes extreme advantage of that. So his Blade Storm quadruple dips on those modifiers from Chizuru. That's a really big damage boost. That being said, Kaito's damage is still pretty low, but it's a lot higher thanks to Chizuru. Now we're going to use Wilk to Vengeance, and Kaito is going to triple Blade Storm to triple Bolting, and we're going to shift it LB with Tsukiko. Okay, so and don't use Runda just yet. So Tsukiko's, actually Runda can use LB. So SLB. So Tsukiko, her LB is a little bit slower than triple Bolting Strike. So you've got to click Tsukiko first, wait a split moment, then click your Bolting Strikers to cap it. And we're going to go ahead and use only 3 DPS for the burst turn. It should still easily overcap. But we're not going to deal a 100 count chain. The 100 count chain comes later. And then we're going to click Runda during this as well with his SLB. And Runda's SLB is going to be clicked after Tsukiko, so it'll refill Chizuru and Tsukiko's LB. So let's go ahead and deal our damage. Also, we have the damage over time this turn. It was applied on turn 5, but because turn 5 did not have a magic buff, and we extended the clear to turn 6, the damage over time is very, very weak right now. That's a big reason we extended the clear to turn 6. Okay, let's deal our damage. So Tsukiko, wait just a moment, then chain these guys, and we should deal 2.5 or better. And 3.0. Yeah, we overcapped by 500 million. So there we go, totally fine. And as you saw, we took damage over time. We healed it back up again because of Kiss of Rebirth from Chizuru on Lakshmi, and no one died. So no one used guts, all that. Okay, so now it is turn 7. Turn 7 is by far one of the most dangerous turns in the fight. The boss is going to do 2 non-elemental AoE attacks, also 2 elemental AoE attacks. Also, the boss has an unremovable attack and magic buff at the start of his turn. He's going to apply that before using any attack. It's very, very crazy painful. So, what we are going to do, this is a little bit tricky. I got my list over here. So first of all, let's go ahead and do this in order. Let's do cover, protect, and shell on Runda. Let's have Tsukiko go back to the base form, and also, by the way, we still have damage over time, too, from turn 5. Thankfully, it's a weak damage over time. We're going to do Rod and Peril. We're going to re-imbue the party with Earth using Consecration, and then we're going to Prayer of Protection. Okay. Now, this is why we had Chizuru stay in the base form. We're now going to use her 85% magic mitigation. That is going to make it significantly better to survive this incoming damage. We're also going to use Focused Mind, which is a 12,500 point barrier, and we're going to use Breezy Barrier to reapply that Wind Resist buff. Okay, Wilk is now going to use Hurricane Fist to unlock his good ability for later. We're not worried about chaining it right now. Kaito is going to go to the shift form. We're going to do Downpour for the killers. We're going to do Crashing for the bigger break. And we're going to do Torrential Force to get his modifiers for Blade Storm powered up again. Okay. Now we're also going to use the healing skill Resurging Will from the Morale Bark. We're not going to heal with Kresnik. Now, Kresnik needs to quad normal attack to refill LB gauge on Tsukiko and Chizuru. This is going to guarantee refill them, because remember, we did Runda's SLB on turn 5 or turn 6 after dealing damage, and that gave 30 LB, and this gives 40 more LB. So that guarantees refills Chizuru and Tsukiko. So damage over time, heal it back up with the Kiss of Rebirth. Here comes double AoE non-elemental and double AoE water. Painful turn, but with 85% mitigation, we are okay. Wilk doesn't die, no one dies. The difference between 85 mitigation and only 50 magic mitigation is basically lethal or not. Like, I was dying with only 50% magic mitigation. Anyway, there we go. So now we're going to, first of all, we're going to use Kresnik. This turn, the boss is going to do an AoE water and wind attack. We are not absorbing water. So, also, the boss is going to remove any resistance buffs you have. So, let's go ahead and use Kresnik as the first action. We're going to supplement for the LB damage buff for Chizuru. We're going to Antioxidant to cure the Imperils. And we're going to Potion to top the party back off. Okay, so everyone is using either 200% to both of the elements, or they are using 1 stack of guts and 200% to one of the elements to survive this turn. So we're going to have Tsukiko use her shifted LB. Runda is going to triple bolting. Chizuru is going to shift and do her LB, which is a tag chain, so you don't got to match anyone. Let's go ahead and do the defense and spirit buff this turn. Let's do the attack and magic buff this turn. And Wilk will do his vengeance against the Dreadnought. And okay, so that would be a 84 point chain. Also, the boss has unremovable defense and spirit buff this turn. In order to get rid of that as the first action in this whole big mega chain, we're going to have Kaito use his buff removal down skill. Then we're going to do natural and deadly. Those are bolting, and they're going to come in during this big whole chain and get us to a 102 count chain score. So basically just click everyone at the same time, but make sure Kaito is the first one clicked. Then the boss is going to do a water and wind attack, and you'll see what happens after that. So here we go. This is to deal a big burst damage right here. Boom. Perfect. Okay, so water and wind attack. We're either immune, gutsing, or absorbing on Kaito. So there we go, and boom. Perfect. So there it is. We survive, technically speaking, and we're good. Real quick, out of curiosity, Chizuru actually... Oh, I think Chizuru has personal self-guts. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, we're good. Okay, so now we're going to finish off the boss. That being said, the boss does have the defensive spirit buff again, which cannot be removed, and we already used Kaito's Magnus. Oh, also, we did 102 count chain on that 102 count chain on the previous turn, I think. Anyway, now we need to kill the boss. So let's go ahead and do the attack and magic buff. Let's have Runda use his SLB to fill 30 LB gauge. Let's have Kresnik normal attack to fill LB gauge. Chizuru, I expected her to die. I'm not sure why she didn't die. She was supposed to have died. I was going to do her base form LB to power up Kaito, but because Chizuru didn't die, I mean, we'll just do her shifted LB. Normally, she'll die and re-raise, because we did Mastery on turn 6. She would have re-raised and been fine in the base form, and we would have refilled her LB and done her base form, and that would have powered up Kaito, who is going to do Blade Storm. But she didn't die, so whatever, okay. And then we're going to do Tsukiko's shifted LB again, and then Wilk is going to just do Dragon's Reincarnation to chain. Okay, and this should finish off the boss because basically Tsukiko is going to hit the boss. The boss has very high physical mitigation this turn, but Tsukiko ignores that. So let's go ahead and deal our damage and finish off the boss on turn 9 before the boss does crazy berserk thing. And there we go. Tsukiko came at the end and did basically 500 million all on her own. So there was the rank 1 without Sylvie. Pretty tricky to do. Definitely challenging. I'll show you the gear. The gear is high end, but, you know, we got it done. Stressful and an enormous headache. Perfect score. Got everything done. And here's the damage breakdown. Wilk was a decent unit here. You know, I do kind of, you know, make fun of Wilk for being bad. That being said, he does have a self-only 60% Earth Amplify, so that was pretty useful for this fight because we're not using a good AoE Amplify. Tsukiko, obviously big MVP. Kaito geared for damage. His damage is still pretty terrible, but he still did a bunch. And Chizuru, unfortunately, we had to have good magic mitigation. So Chizuru basically was just like a real big support unit on this clear. She only bursted like 1 or 2 turns, and they were very low burst because she was all in for the support stuff. But, you know, we needed magic mitigation. So I am, for those of you guys saying, please do a clear without Sylvie, there you go. Please, please never ask me for that again, because not using Sylvie is obnoxious. Oh, it's hard. It's hard. But we did it. Okay, so here's the clear. Here's the team we use. Hopefully I remember to point out all the important stuff. So as far as Espers go, we need Chizuru on Lakshmi, and Lakshmi needs to have Kiss of Rebirth learned. Alright, so Wilk. In the base form, Wilk is using at least 50% wind resist. Water resist can be ignored, but at least 50% wind resist. Other than that, as much bulk as you can possibly fit, and he needs a way to deal fire, earth, or light damage on turn 1. Now, if he's using his own card, you want to dual wield him for more morale. That being said, our morale was not a problem. As you saw, we went to turn 6, so morale fill is very, very easy. I think we capped morale at like turn 4 or 5, so you don't need to squeeze this much morale out of your team. But, you know, if you've got the card, take advantage of it. Make him dual wield. So we're dual wielding Zizat's Morning Star, because these give true dual wield spirit. You know, each of these gives 75% true dual wield spirit. It's obviously very nice when you use 2 of them. Doom Train Successor, 50% true dual wield spirit. So we've got maxed, you know, spirit true dual wield, and that's how we're getting a lot of spirit on him. Shift form, make sure he is using his claws. Don't use the axe. Claws have a demon killer buff, and that is used for him. Give him a source of guts in the shift form. He also needs unbuffed 200 water or wind resist. This allows him to survive the turn 8 attack. That way, he immunes one of them with 200 wind resist. Even when the boss takes away your resist buffs, he's still immune to the wind attack, and then he gutses the water attack on turn 8. So there you go. Or you could be high water and low wind. That's fine too. But he has natural wind resist, so go with the wind. And then there's his build. Chain damage versus spirits and demons. He's maxed on everything. So maxed demon, maxed fairy. Kresnik, in the shift form, starts in the shift form. He is passive provoking with the diadem. That way the single target attacks go to him, and then run to covers him, and then run to gets cover mitigation on top of the other mitigations. It really helps with survival. The rod for the auto morale, ring for the auto morale. Other than that, a lot of bulk. He needs 50% or better wind resist in the shift form for the turn 3 attack, because we're using a 150 wind resist buff. And there we go. Other than that, kind of whatever. This card is literally just for the HP. If you don't have the card, just give him the highest HP card you have. Shift or base form. Base form needs to be dual wielding with Yeti style or Aurora's. He needs a quad attack build. So quad attack build, and you want him to have 200 or better to wind resist again for the turn 8 attack. And then I think he has guts naturally, so make sure he's using his trust mastery as well. Yep. So there we go. So high bulk. It's not as high as I would like. Only 2,700 spirit, but he survived. And there we go. So 200 wind resist in the base form. Chizuru in the base form, as much spirit as you can possibly fit. We need that kiss of rebirth from Lakshmi to heal as much as possible as healing over time, because we're not using Sylvie. And not using Sylvie means we need a good heal over time. So here's the build we're using. Double hand, equip shield, equip instrument, sousaphone, shields, double air, as much spirit as you possibly can fit. And she needs 50 or better wind resist in the base form. You can ignore water resist. Shift form, pure damage. Don't need guts, don't need resist, nothing. I expected her to die and re-raise on turn 8. I still have no idea why she didn't die on turn 8. Maybe she has double guts naturally. I don't know. It didn't matter, but okay. So there it is. But because she never has time to charge up, she never has time to power up, her damage is pretty low. But she is maxed on most things. So 300 LB, 300 Demon, and Fairy, 225 Fairy. So there it is. But really, the biggest reason she is here is for this reason right here. 85% magic mitigation on turn 7 and 8. That is such a big deal. It is very, very important. Kaito, in the base form, is geared for damage. He needs 50 or better wind resist for the turn 3 attack. Other than that, give him a source of guts. He needs one source of guts in the base form. Other than that, pure damage. I gave him 2 sources. It doesn't really matter. He's maxed and everything anyway. His own card, and he's got maxed Fairy, maxed Demon, and Chain Cap. He does the Blade Storm in the base form for damage. Shift form is pure bulk. Give him a source of water absorption in the shift form, so his trust mastery basically. Other than that, just bulk, and give him 200 or better wind resist in the shift form. That's because we need him to be surviving the turn 8 attack. So 200 wind resist, water absorption, and he is really important for the debuff removal or the buff removal and all that. Also water absorption, breaks, etc., etc. Tsukiko in the base form needs 50 or better wind resist. Just 50 is all you need. You can ignore water resist in the base form. Actually, some water resist does help, because she's going to be in the base form on turn 7. So a little bit of water resist does help. As much spirit and HP as possible. You don't need guts, but you do need LB fill. So Call of the Wild, Dragon's Brush, Ayaka's Headpiece. For guaranteed LB fill, you need 10 per turn. 8 per turn is what I went with, so I had a little bit of RNG on crystal drops, but it's okay, we got it. And then magic boost if you have it. If you don't have it, it's fine. We did 3 billion in the burst. I've done as high as 3.4. So magic boost is not required if you don't own that, but it is a big help to allow you to burst on turn 6 for the big damage cap. And then shift form. Whoops, I meant to do that. Hold on. Okay, shift form, her own vision card, by the way. Shift form is evocation damage, and now she needs a source of guts in the shift form. We're getting that from the Chocobo accessory. And she needs 200 to either water or wind resist. So we chose water because for her it's easier to gear. So she's getting 70 water resist from Siren. She's getting 50 from Duty to the World. That's 120. And she's getting 80 from Prideful Incarnate. That's 200 resist. So on turn 8, she immune to the water attack, and then she guts the wind attack. So that's how we survive turn 8. And then her build is EX2, maxed LB, maxed Evo, and 280 Esper damage because we had to get some resist in there. And then Runda is not passive. Actually, technically speaking, he is passive provoking because the arm and the shield is passive provoke. Just make sure he's lower in the party order than Kresnik. That way, Kresnik overrides his passive provoke, and don't ever use his active provoke. As much wind and water resist as you can fit. He's very bulky, so you don't really need to max him out. I gave him Snow Bear for auto healing. It counters with a big self-only heal. If you don't own this, it's okay. It helps. It's not required. Other than that, just as much physical bulk as you can get, and some magic bulk as well. So there we go, and then a bulk card. So there it is. I'll post a screenshot of the team's gear in the comments. I'll post a turn chart in the comments. There is the way to do Koopa Troopa without Sylvie. And now I'm taking 10 aspirins because this gave me the biggest headache to figure out. Okay, see you next time.